Hansen, Elaine Nedelin, and Dieter Staudinger, and we got a special guest tonight, Chris Junta. And Elaine, we decided that you were a flight engineer. We should have brought Eric. He knows all the terminology there. So anyway, we want to welcome everybody out there. Of course, we do this show for people who are afraid to fly, people who know somebody who's afraid to fly, and people who just like to talk airplanes and keep current on the industry out there. First thing is to join our Facebook group. And Elaine, you want to talk a little bit about that? What the surprise we have for?
Yeah, we actually have something in the works for our group members. The lucky 700th member will receive a prize. They have their choice of either a 60-minute coaching session with Captain Ron or the FearlessFlight kit. Right now, we're at 677 members, so we're getting very, very close. So that 700th person is out there. And as soon, I'll be checking group join requests throughout the week. As soon as we hit 700, we will let that lucky person know, and then they'll have their choice of either a 60-minute coaching session or the FearlessFlight kit.
Cool. Awesome. And I wanted to compliment the group this week. I had a coaching student that was engaged in the Birds of a Feather with another fearful flyer, and he really connected with her. And she was talking about it was stretching her budget to do any coaching or anything, and he actually purchased the FearlessFlight kit for her. And I just want to say,
that's awesome.
The best that we could ever hope for. And
that is so awesome.
The next day, I had another person do it. So there were two people that purchased the flight kit for people. One of them is traveling in April. The other one traveled last weekend, and she made it to Miami.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really touching to do that. And I threw in.
Sounds like paid forward, that.
Yeah.
When you come through to the other side, you look back and you say, hey, you can do this too.
Yeah.
Our group is really the perfect, place for that. So thank you, Elaine, for all of your efforts. And
you're welcome.
I'm hoping we're revealing 700 very soon. So
I hope so too. I'm looking forward to it. So I'll continue stalking the group join requests, and as soon as we hit 700, I'll let you guys know.
Awesome.
Okay. We'll announce the winners. Okay, poll question this week. We were curious if there was an article in the media about whether it's safer for COVID-19 transmission or risk on a train like Amtrak or on an airplane. And so we just thought we make a question of that. If time was not an issue and the train schedule is convenient, would you feel safer on the train? And we're talking in terms of COVID-19 or on a plane or on a train. So just leave a comment in the Facebook section there. Okay, tonight we're gonna we wanted to update that. We talked a little bit last week. Eric talked about this Boeing 777 that had an engine failure and made the news a couple weeks ago, climbing out of Denver. And I recall, but not in the foremost of my mind, that there was another incident on a United 777 a couple of years ago. And I just happened to get I'm on a fellow's YouTube channel who does some great commentary on issues like this. And so Eric and I listened through there. And so I wanted to have Eric just comment on what we learned from that and the whole point of this. So what he's going to talk about is the other engine failure, very similar, that happened 2 years ago. They were going from San Francisco to Hawaii, as opposed to the one out of Denver, which was going from Denver to Hawaii. So maybe the moral of that story is forget about going to Hawaii on United. So anyway, so Eric, you wanna comment on that?
Yeah, just a short update. If we talked about that incident by itself, it would be the whole show, and it is actually very fascinating. But as I told you last week, I was guessing at some of these imaging techniques that could be used to inspect for fatigue cracking in the engine turbine blades. and I was on the right track, but didn't have it nailed down. And of course, either the night after we finished the show or the next day, some of this other information came out about how we do that. And this, Ron said this guy in the YouTube channel was very familiar with that and was talking about it. He's a mechanic. And the manner in which they inspect the blades is pretty fascinating. They can detach them from the hub in pairs, and they're sending them back to Pratt & Whitney, the engine manufacturer. And the type of inspection technique they use is called thermal acoustic imaging, TAI. And they start by painting the blades, presumably to insulate them. And the guys who do this are very meticulous, and there are not very many of them. So it's like a handcrafted Italian shoe. It's a slow process. And it's hard to train anybody else because they're real busy doing it. But they paint the blades and then they heat them. And when they heat them, that's imparting energy into the blade. And if there's cracks or cracking, the motion of the metal in between the stressed parts will be revealed as they heat the blade. So it's a manner of like an ultrasound, but they can get this revealed by heating these blades independently and looking. And I did not mention that last week, so I wanted to bring it up now. That's how Pratt & Whitney does it, and they themselves are inspecting the engine fan blades, and they now have a little backlog, presumably.
Wow.
One of the things that I found interesting was that the technology of that engine is basically 70s. And it went into production, they hung it on the airplanes in the 80s. And they didn't even have the technology to do those checks in those days. That's something that I'm sure is like the last 15 years max, maybe. And so while it's not something you want to happen, have a compressor blade separate like that, but it is comforting to me, at least, that the technology that they have to check that. And to me, it's just gee whiz stuff. Holy cow! How do you do something like that? It's it took me a couple times to read the damn process to just have some kind of a rudimentary understanding of what that was. So anyway, so we want to bring that up because we never deny that there are accidents and incidents that happen in the aviation industry. But one of the things that we pride ourselves in, it's how we got to the safest way to travel on the planet, is by the checks and compliance and procedures that make it safe to fly out there. So, okay, we'll have a special guest now, and then we'll review chapter 6 there, and of course we'll take questions from there. Our guest tonight he's really near and dear to the hearts of all of us. I don't think Elaine lives in the Bay Area. The LA basin, but Chris is like, well, if he ever needed some more parents, he's got some here, because Eric and I and Dieter and Diane all got very attached to this kid, and he didn't even look like a kid anymore. He's gone off to college, and he's totally grown up. And but we met first when you were like 7 years old or so, Chris. Chris Junta. Welcome, Chris. I'm glad to. And he's in.
So great to be here and see all you guys again.
And you're talking from Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame, or how?
I am. Yes, my first year here, and I'm loving it so far.
20 miles down the road from where I grew up, and experienced all the finer points of winter in the Midwest. So
yeah, anyway. That's definitely been interesting so far.
Yeah. So we met. You came. You have a brother that's younger than you, and you came to the class when you were like 7 years old, if I remember right.
Yeah, I guess you could say I'm a veteran. It's been a long time, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's when my dad first brought me.
And because a lot of people ask if the classes that we do, and if you can and help them. And so tell us a little bit about your story, Chris, about what it was like for you and
All right. Well, so ever since I was little, I don't know what caused it or why I happened to be so terrified of flying, but it was always like a constant thing in my life from when I was growing up. And we'd tried a couple of times to go places, but even the thought of possibly flying somewhere, I would just totally run away from it. And I absolutely would, just thinking about it, I would start to sweat and get all nervous. And then there was one time actually that I made it all the way onto the plane, and even that part, I guess, just all of the sensations and being there and realizing like what I was about to do, I just like totally like froze, and then just like started crying and all that, and just had to get off, right? Everybody's looking at me like, what the heck just happened? But it took me about, yeah, he said I started coming to like periodically when I was 7 years old, and it took me probably about till I was 15 or 16, I think, when we
15
finally flew.
You and I flew that day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me, I'll never
Mhm.
forget that. It was because I was in the middle, you were on one side and your dad was on the other, and we did a selfie there. And what I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I remember, one of the biggest obstacles for you was just the anxiety that you felt through the initial takeoff. Like that. And you happened to ask me that day, you know, how long does it last? And I said, you know, never more than about 30 seconds. And that struck you as odd on that day, or as a surprise, you know, because
Mhm.
not surprisingly, when we're under extreme anxiety and stress, time gets distorted, and you think it's never going to end, right? And so, but it was a very cute. I apologize for not finding the video tonight, but it was you on video saying, talk to Captain Ron. He can do that. And that was pretty much the end of your anxiety. Because
Yeah, it was, for me, it never really was much about mechanical or the actual thought of flying. It was more the suspense and like what I didn't know was going to happen. So
yeah,
the thing with always asking you how long it was going to take was more like, all right, I'm in the seat now, just do it already. Didn't want to have to wait for all of the buildup there. And I remember you telling me to, like, I think you took out your phone and started timing it for me to look, just to like give more of a perspective on how quick it actually was going by. Because like you said, when it's that stressed and anxious, it feels like years pretty much just sitting there waiting for it, sweating, everything. But yeah, it was just getting past that first hurdle of doing it for the first time. And then ever since, I might have been nervous a couple of times since then, but pretty much like that was the end of it as soon as I finally got to that point.
yeah. And not only that, but then you started coming to the classes and being our resident tech guy, and then you flew with us on a couple more occasions, and you started flying. I got the slide you told me about, this Flight Radar 24, and just tell us how much you're flying now.
I think the number is in the 70s now, is the amount of times the amount of flights that I've reached. The website Flight Radar 24, it lets you every time you put in a flight, you enter in the information and it adds it to the map, and it'll show you the statistics about how far you've traveled and how long it's been. And I like to do that every time, and sometimes just look back at it to see like how far I've come.
I'm sorry.
It's already up, Ron. It's already up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up there.
Okay, cool.
Mhm. Yeah, and then just now it's just all the different places I want to add on the map versus like just trying to get there in the first place. Now I actually enjoy it and like look forward to when we can go somewhere that involves getting to travel.
And then the other day I was trying to, the email address I had for you bounced, so I contacted your dad, and so I put that up on the slide. I just thought it was really funny. He said, and if it hadn't been for you talking about me, he wouldn't have ever gotten on a plane to attend Notre Dame. His world had opened up, and now we have him off buying tickets to a whole bunches of places. And you got gold status on Americans, so that's pretty cool from where you were at one point in your life.
They all make fun of that now because I get to board before them. So
that's cool.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely never would have thought I'd get to that point, that I fly so many times that I like got on that level.
Yeah. Well, I think your persistence is really, the credit, a credit to you that you never gave up. And there were some tense moments when you came back for the final push. I remember you talking about, you guys were trying to take a family cruise, and in order to do that, you had to fly to Fort Lauderdale, I think, from Phoenix here. And you just felt bad because felt like a cloud on everybody else's fun there. So you had a lot of courage. I wanted to acknowledge.
And my dad and I actually had a trip planned the week before I ended up flying with you. And that was another,
yeah.
I didn't even walk inside of the airport that time. It was so bad. So that, I think, like, being frustrated with myself kind of helped motivate me to like push me to the last step. And that's when we saw you were having the class where you were flying like 4 or 5 days later. And like, we have to go and do this.
And I think that was your Lakers trip, right? You were going to go over and watch Kobe play in LA.
Yeah.
And
it was 2 months, I think, before he retired. So that was what our goal was, to try and get to see at some point before his last game was.
Yeah. It was cool. Well, I just have nothing but respect for you, Chris, and I wish you the best. And I'm so excited.
There's no way it would have happened without all your help.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
No way would have happened with all your courage. So anyway.
I mean, yeah, you just hate to take the credit, but it's true.
I love the category on that app showing tons of CO2 spewed out so that you can flight shame yourself and you're still going. That's incredible.
My apologies to the environment.
You're such a bright young man, Chris. The amazing things that you will accomplish and the places that you will go on this planet. I'm gonna say everybody is in a better place before that. So
I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
We feel like your family. We feel like your family.
Yeah.
I know. I miss all you guys. Can't wait to see everybody in person again sometime.
No kidding.
Yeah.
When you come back, if we ever get back in the airport to do classes, we'll definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're getting older, we must be getting older too. So that's not.
No, we're getting younger. We're getting younger.
Serving friend.
With exception.
Already did
Well,
that last week.
hang on with us here, Chris, if you want, and feel free to comment on. We're just going to talk about chapter 6 in the book here. We finally got the book out, and
oh, that's awesome.
And so go to slide 10, Dieter. That one it's just a review of part 1. We've been talking about the book. We're on chapter 6 tonight. Part 1 was about the psychology of fear flying, and slide 11, part 2 is about the basics of flight, and that's what we're talking about chapter 6 about, which is titled The Basics of Flight. I have a quote in there that says, "Give it some wings, put some engines on it, and give me a way to control it, and I'll make it fly." And that's not just me, but that's any airplane or device like that. We used to joke about the Russians because they had a lot more primitive airplanes. We said the Russians are living proof that you can make a rock fly if you put big enough engines on it. But there's truth in that. Anything that you throw through space generates lift. And the trouble is, if you have a small rock, it takes a lot of speed to make that sucker fly, and you have to have some controllability to position it in there. But this is one of the shorter chapters in the book, believe it or not. And one of the first things we talk about are the forces that an airplane experiences, and there are 4. Lift is the force that goes up. Weight is the part that is exhibited by gravity, and thrust is the movement forward through the air, and drag is the resistance to the air. So those 4 forces, and when you're in straight and level flight in the air, those are all in equilibrium. And that's the basics of it. And the next slide, you can see I put a good word in there for Mr. Bernoulli, who I thought was Italian for the longest time. He's actually French. And that very complex formula over there is the last thing on computing lift there. But the basic thing you want to know is just you can see that over the top of the wing, it has a little more curvature than it does underneath the bottom. And so it accelerates the velocity of the air. And whenever, according to Bernoulli, whenever you accelerate fluid in general, but in this case air, you cause a relative reduction in the pressure, and that makes the airplane go up. And there's nothing more complicated about flying than that. The complication comes as a pilot when you learn how to manipulate that. And so the next topic here is, how does a plane fly? And in order to do that, you have to understand the control surfaces there. There are things called aileron, rudders, and elevators. And God, Eric, we got tons of others, elevons and stabilators, and all kinds of things like that. But basically, if you look at the airplane, you've got the basic wings, and then you've got the tail plane, which is a horizontal stabilizer that is the little wings in the back there. And then you've got a rudder, which is basically half of a wing, right? And all of those operate with the same function. The airflow over those surfaces creates lift. And then when you put movable surfaces on it, like the ailerons in that slide, you can then cause the lift on one wing to increase and the lift on another wing to decrease. And that starts the airplane to roll. And that's how we turn airplanes. The rudder back there is basically for in large airplanes with twin engines like this. The main reason for the rudder there is if we were to have an engine that quits, now the one engine that is remaining wants to turn the airplane in the direction of the engine that's failed. And so we use the rudder to keep it going straight. It's not like a boat where we turn the airplane with the rudder. We can use the rudder to manipulate the airplane position and controls sometimes, but generally we use it for coordinated flight in the event of an engine out. And then the last thing are the elevators in the back. And that basically, we change the lift over the back in order to make the airplane climb, raise the pitch attitude, or descend by lowering the pitch attitude. And again, that's the long and the short story behind how we make airplanes fly. The key takeaways in that chapter are airplanes fly by moving through the air. The faster we go, the thicker the air feels. And in that the Bernoulli's theory or principle there's a Greek symbol called rho, and that stands for the viscosity or the thickness of that fluid. So if you remember as a kid, we would, you'd stick your hands out your window, and I always joke, what's the first thing that happened? Your dad would say, put your hands back in or you're going to lose them. But basically when we do that, and you can do this tomorrow if the weather is appropriate for that, you can stick your hand out the window of your car, and when you turn your palm toward up a little bit, you're going to feel the pressure of that air, and it's going to make your palm want to go up, and conversely, if you aim it down, it's going to go down. And the faster you go, the more pressure you'll feel on your hand. So what we do is we trick the airplane into thinking that the air is like Jello, because it really does. So if you have engines that are sufficient to propel it through space, then the faster you go, the thicker the air seems, and that's how we generate lift on all that. So if you have a piece of paper here, I like to show people just a simple thing to prove how the velocity over a piece of paper will generate lift. So if I just turn this to the side here, or turn to the side, and I hold it underneath by my lower lip with my finger, and I go, simply by increasing the velocity over the piece of paper, it rises. And that's exactly how aviation works, or how lift works in an airplane there. And then the second point there, and takeaway, besides the main wings, there are a lot of mini wings, which we talked about, that use the same aerodynamic forces in conjunction with the cockpit controls. And that's what allows us to maintain control in the airplane. And when we're flying, lift is always opposite weight, and thrust is always opposite drag. And so why do you need to know the basics of flight? Because otherwise your mind goes rampant thinking about things over which you really don't know the facts. And it tends to get you worried about something that's really of no concern at all. And so that's the main reason why we encourage people to learn the basics of flying. Our Fearless Flight method is educate yourself about the airplane and about fear, and then learn to distract yourself, which is the first way you get that little smoke detector to either overtalk it or get it to calm down. And the last thing is build a community, which is what we've tried to do here with Fearless Flight. Let's see, anything else, Eric, that you want to throw out there that that's of interest?
No, that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Okay.
I was gonna have Dieter trick you to see if you noticed it and change the slide with the happy airplane with the 4 forces of flight, because I knew that, you know, I didn't know if you'd see it, you would talk automatically. I was going to have him change the forces to money going forwards, dreams going up, FAA going backwards, and reality going down. And I was going to have him flash that up, claim that Jim Duke hacked in, and see how long it would take for you to notice that. Dared you.
That's the corollary to Bernoulli's law.
Yes, you make an argument for all of that.
Yeah. Well, we want to encourage everybody to join the Birds of a Feather again, and particularly in view of the fact that we're going to have surprises for the people.
Close to
who
700
are in the-
members. Yeah.
What's that?
Close to 700. That just blows my mind. It just is.
Yep. So if you
Elaine is just absolutely doing the most fabulous job.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
It's a good group. They have a lot of fun.
that's wonderful.
yeah, it
Very
is a good group.
active.
And the last thing is we want to encourage you to get the book. We created it to be simple and easy to read. You can pick it up and put it down whenever you want. And you don't need to be a pilot to get over your fear of flying, but it helps to know more than what typically most people know about that. So, Chris, thanks again for taking time out of your schedule.
Thanks so much for
school
having
you
me.
got?
Yeah.
When you guys get out?
Second week of May. So we
Okay.
started pretty late. We started the first week of February, so we still got a ways to go.
And are you big time influenced by COVID as well with the social distancing and all that, or a lot more?
Oh yeah,
online?
it's definitely strange. Like, and then the classes we do have in person, like you sit really far away, like 4 desks apart from people and that kind of thing. So it's definitely strange to adjust, but we're making it work.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks Eric and Diane and Dieter and Elaine, and of course thanks again Chris for making this possible for us. Another edition of Fearless Flight Live, and we hope to see you again next week. Come on back. Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye. Have a great week.
Happy
Awesome.
Tuesday.